Okay, so tonight, Soul Church, we're going through the Old Testament. And we're at Leviticus chapter 23 today. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Leviticus 23. If you want a Bible, Dan's going to run and grab some Bibles for you. So just let him know. He'll bring a stack. So Leviticus chapter 22. We're almost through Leviticus. Leviticus has 27 chapters, or 23, sorry. Leviticus 23. But Leviticus has 27 chapters. So let me kind of give you a quick overview of what's happened so far to take us up to chapter 23. So Leviticus 1 through 7 are the regulations for offerings. So all of the different types of offerings happen in 1 through 7. There's the regulations on that. 8 through 10 is the regulations for priests, which makes sense. It follows the offering. So here's what you do for the offerings. Here's what the priests are supposed to do. You just want to get on the camera for Facebook Live, don't you? I get that. 11 through 15 are the food and disease regulations, which Bill helped us with last week. 16 through 17 are the atonement regulations. So this is why we do the atonement, and this is how you do the atonement. 18 through 20 is the interpersonal regulations. This is how you treat one another. This is how you interact with each other. 21 and 22 is interesting because it's interpersonal regulations for priests. There's different ones for priests, or more rigorous ones for the priests at that time anyway. And so that brings us up to chapter 23. Chapter 23 is all about festivals. All about festivals. I find chapter 23 to be a very interesting chapter because it's regulations on festivals. Right? Why do you chuckle? Because I chuckle too. No, I'm not trying to call you out, Lori. Because I chuckle about that too. It seems like, really? You've got to regulate festivals? You've got to put it in there to say there's festivals? But my personality, and certainly not Lori's personality, because we're a little bit opposite, but my personality, I don't tend to just celebrate. I just assume work, honestly. So, holidays come, we say we close the office on Monday, we close the office. Well, I'm probably here. And so, I don't do festivals well. I don't do celebrations well. And I wonder if that's why God hasn't said, look, you as human beings, you need to know you need to celebrate. You need to know you've got to take time out of work. You've got to rest, you've got to relax, you've got to enjoy life, you've got to take joy in life. And so we're getting into all these festivals. So let me just start reading some of it. I won't read all of it. But the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, 'These are my appointed festivals, the appointed festivals of the Lord, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies. There are 6 days when you may work, but the 7th day is a day of Sabbath rest, a day of sacred assembly. You are not to do any work wherever you live. It is a Sabbath to the Lord.'" So we've seen this before, right? Where have you seen this before? In what context? Do you remember? It's
Genesis, where it says God rested.
Okay, it's there. Yeah. 10 Commandments. Right, in the 10 Commandments. So we read it in the 10 Commandments, and we read it here. Different context here. 10 Commandments, God is giving them the law, right? Here, what's it in the context of? Celebrating. Isn't that interesting? As part of celebrations, he starts with, every week, you're going to get to celebrate. It used to be, and still is in some places, every week it's like, oh, I can't do sports, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. It misses the whole spirit of Sabbath. Because Sabbath isn't about focusing on what you can't do. It's focusing on what? Celebration. It's focusing on, I don't have to do. I get to celebrate. I get to festival every Sunday. We'll come around to that again. But that's the first one. So every week you've got a festival built into your work week. Every week you get to festival. And then we have the Passover. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. The Lord's Passover begins at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. On the 15th day of the month, the Lord's festival of unleavened bread begins. For 7 days you must eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. For 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord, and on the seventh day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. So this is a week-long celebration. Why do they eat bread without leaven? Why is it unleavened bread? You know this. What's that? Right. Because when they left Egypt, they didn't have time for leaven to work into the dough, and it was like, hey, when I say go, get ready to go. So make bread without leaven, because you don't want it in your tray in the sun rising, because it's going to get ruined. So every year, one of their festivals is Passover, on the 14th day of the first month. Now, just a little bit about months. The Passover in our calendar happens probably March or April, which is Easter. Easter is tied with Passover, and so the Jewish calendar was based on that time. At that time, anyway, it was based on a lunar month. Our calendars are based on solar months. So basing it on a lunar month means there's 346 days, 346 and a quarter days a year, rather than 300 and... Thank you. I wasn't quite sure what that number was. Yeah, thanks. I don't know. It's not in the Bible. I don't know it. I don't know. I'm not good with numbers. So Passover was either March or April. That was their religious New Year, was March or April. It began in Passover. Okay, their civic New Year actually began on the 7th month, which was the Atonement, which would be September, October, which kind of reflects September for the ancient Europeans and whatnot. Their New Year began in September. A lot of them, at any rate. So they begin celebrating the New Year with Passover. Okay? So then there's another one, offering of first fruits. Verse 9, the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I'm going to give you, and you reap its harvest, bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain you harvest." Usually that was barley. Barley is the quickest ripening, for them anyway, the quickest ripening grain. So the barley harvest was usually, generally actually about April, the barley harvest, April or May. And then there was other grains that ripened in May, June, and wheat was usually June, end of June-ish kind of thing. So this is the barley harvest. It's after Passover. Whatever the weather would be like, whatever, it's not a set day. But when you first start reaping, when that barley harvest is ready and you look out in the field and say, yep, time to harvest. They were supposed to cut a sheaf of it, and they would bring it. He is to wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it will be accepted on your behalf. The priest is to wave it on the day after the Sabbath. So obviously you aren't harvesting on the Sabbath, because then you'd be breaking the first one. So the day after the Sabbath, go ahead and start. On the day you wave the sheaf, you must sacrifice a burnt offering to the Lord, a lamb a year old without defect, together with its grain offering of 2/10 of an ephah of finest flour mixed with olive oil, a food offering presented to the Lord, a pleasing aroma, and its drink offering of a quart or a hin of wine. You must not eat any bread or roasted or new grain until the very day you bring this offering to your God. This is to be a lasting ordinance for generations to come, wherever you live. Well, what was that all about? What do you think? You're not supposed to eat any of that new grain, make bread from the new stuff, until you do this. What's that on about? What do you think?
Thanking God for the harvest.
Yeah. Yeah. So you see that barley. I mean, what's the temptation, right? Oh man, we're going to harvest. And so, yeah, let's get the sickle out and let's get enough to bake a couple of loaves of bread and let's sit down with the family and, oh, this is yum. This is going to be so good. Right? And, oh yeah, we'll get to God later, but let's do this. And it's interesting that it says, put God first. Yeah, I know your stomach wants you to eat that right away. I know that your temptation is to forget God and do this right away, but the first thing you do is after the Sabbath, you cut that grain, you bring it to the temple, you bring it to the priest, you say, God, thank you. And then you go at it. The next one is the Festival of Weeks. So from the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks. Count off 50 days up to the day of the 7th Sabbath. So seven weeks is 49 days, plus the next Sabbath is 50 days. Generally, after the barley harvest began, 7 weeks later, you'd be ready for the grain harvest, the wheat harvest, rather. So, from wherever you live, verse 17, bring 2 loaves made of 2/10 of an ephah of the finest flour, baked with yeast. Isn't that interesting? Of the finest flour. Don't give them the bad stuff. Bring the good stuff. Baked with yeast as a wave offering of first fruits to the Lord. Present with this bread 7 male lambs, each of a year old without defect, 1 young bull and 2 rams. They will be a burnt offering to the Lord, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, a food offering and an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for sin offering and 2 lambs, each a year old, for a fellowship offering. The priest is to wave the 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread of the firstfruits. They are a sacred offering to the Lord for the priest. On the same day you are to proclaim a sacred assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. So after they're done harvest, or they're almost done harvest, whenever that timing might be, they have this great big festival. Why do you think the amount of offering they had to offer to God was so much more significant than the offering of first fruits? What do you think? They have more. Yeah. The first fruits, they're beginning. Okay, the barley's ripened. Yes. Barley crop made it. I sure hope my wheat crop makes it. I hope the other crops make it. They're done. They look back. And what are they doing by making all of these offerings? Celebrating. Mm-hmm. And? Yeah. They're celebrating the harvest, and they recognize that the harvest is connected to God. Without God, no harvest. Without God's blessing, the harvest wouldn't be what it is. And so they have this great big festival. We're done. We parked the tractors, we parked the combines. We're all done. They're in the barn. We've taken everything to the mills, to the granaries. They're loaded up on the train cars, and I've got my money. We're good. And they all stop, and they have a great big celebration. And they celebrate together. They celebrate God's goodness together. It's interesting, God doesn't say, well, whenever you get done, just celebrate with your family and don't worry about anybody else. It's a community celebration. Ron?
With the unleavened bread, they were remembering coming out of Egypt, the Exodus, and now they're using leavened bread. It's kind of a tradition.
That's a good observation. Yes, because Scripture clearly and purposely says leavened bread. You have the time to relax, to enjoy, to celebrate, to thank God. Even your time to do this is given to you by God. Interesting, verse 22. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner residing among you. I am the Lord your God. Isn't it always our temptation to get every last nickel out of everything? Right? I'm going to get the last drop of everything out of this because I paid good money, right? Or I'm not going to leave. If I leave the edges of my field, that's a number of loaves of bread I'm missing out on. And at today's wheat prices, I can't afford to do that. But what does God say when he says, don't reap it all. Leave it. What is he saying? Share. Love others. Yeah.
Take care of the
Yeah.
Take care of the people who don't have all that.
Right. Let them eat. Let them enjoy. Let them celebrate God. Let them be part of your celebration.
He's also saying, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
You sell for others, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's also, God is saying, trust me. You don't need to get right to the edge. You don't need every last head of grain. Trust me. I made sure all of your crops grew. I made sure you had everything you need. And that was part of the covenant that he's making with them. If you believe in me, if you follow me, if you serve me, if you know me in relationship, I'll take care of you. I'll make sure you have what you need. So don't get greedy, and don't get unfaithful, and don't doubt me. Trust me. Be faithful to me. I'll be faithful to you. Then there's this festival of trumpets, which is interesting. This is the 7th month. 7th month is September, October kind of thing. This is actually when they plow up their fields. The olives, they begin harvesting their olives in September, October. October, they begin replanting again. And so the Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the first day of the 7th month, you are to have a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. Do no regular work, but present a food offering to the Lord. That's kind of like a music festival. Okay? Nobody's going to work. You're all going to wake up and go, yes, this is the first of the 7th month. It's on my calendar. It's Labor Day, September whatever, right? 7th month. They had a Labor Day. I wonder if we get our Labor Day kind of like something like that. I don't know. And so everybody looked forward to Labor Day. And they blew the trumpets. I don't know what notes they blew. I don't know if they had tunes. I find it, maybe they did more than just stand there and blow trumpets and everyone went, okay, awesome. Maybe they did. I don't know. But maybe they played some tunes. Maybe they had, if guys like Dan were blowing trumpets, you got to know it's not going to be just one note, right? And Michael Moore is never going to let them get away with just one note, right? And Joey's going to be like, can you play it or what? Come on, play the trumpet. And so they had this music festival on Labor Day. Everything was done. Their crops were all in. They were plowing the fields, summer fallow, whatever you want to call it, getting it ready for the next. And here's the month of September for them is awesome. The 7th month for them is awesome. Because in the 26th, verse 26, the Lord said to Moses, the 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement. We looked at the Day of Atonement because that was one of our chapters. That was chapter 16 and 17 in Leviticus. What was the Day of Atonement for? Make me believe that I was teaching you and you learned. What was the Day of Atonement for? Sin. Yeah, Day of Atonement atoned for sin. It was a day that was set aside when they would go through a great big ceremony and make sacrifices, and Aaron would sprinkle the blood, and then there was the scapegoat and all of that. Remember that? They had a goat that they sacrificed, and a goat that he put his hands on, and confessed the sins of the nation, and somebody took that goat and released him in the wilderness, the scapegoat. The sins of the people are on the goat, and they made atonement through all the sacrifices and the blood. So the 1st September, the 7th month, is a great month for them. They started out with a music concert, and then it's the Day of Atonement, the day when they all get together. It's made for you before the Lord your God. Verse 29, those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. Kind of a big deal, right? Why is your shop open on the Day of Atonement? Yeah, I want to make a little extra money because all these people are coming by. Yeah, wrong. Of course, that's kind of what happened in Jesus' day at the temple, right? Why is your shop open? Oh, because it's a day of making money. Yeah, but the Passover is not about that. Nor is serving God. Verse 30, I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You shall do no work at all, because they were all supposed to show up before the temple. They were all supposed to be there on the Day of Atonement, because it was for their sins that they were confessing. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. It is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe the Sabbath. So again, more rest, more celebrating God's fitting into our calendar rest.
Their day starts in the evening and goes to the next evening. It doesn't start at the beginning.
That's a good point. Yeah, sunset, their day begins. Yeah. Yeah.
So they stay up all night and they're doing this celebrating?
I don't know. I don't know.
It starts in the evening and then you go to bed.
Well, the day starts in the evening. I'm guessing that early in the morning they would get up and do all of that. But maybe they stayed up. I don't know. I've never thought about that, actually.
Now,
No, they don't know. That's true.
they don't now, and the ones who are kosher, who follow very, very, very traditional, they do not stay up, they go to bed.
Okay.
They just start the evening at sundown and do absolutely no work, and then they go to bed and they get up and they do no work.
There you go. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Till the evening and yeah. Okay. Okay. That works. Oh yeah, that was a bad pun, right? That doesn't work.
Wherever you live,
Yes.
because the exile, they've been out of even contemporary times, they're all over the world, Jewish
Mhm.
Israelites.
Hmm. Yeah, no matter where you are. Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. What do you think it reflects? What do you think it points to or gives indication of?
Foretells that they're going to be other places other than Israel.
Mm-hmm. It could, yep, definitely. Or you won't all be together because Israel's going to be a big country. So just because you're way up north, I'm far away, nobody's going to care. I can't get there. Don't worry about it. Because God is God there as he is everywhere. That's a good point that you brought up there. Verse 33, another one. So they've got the first day of the 7th month, they've got the 10th day of the 7th month, and then the Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the 7th month. I think the 7th month was, a great time to start working. Like, hey, I'm getting paid for all this. This is great. It's a celebration month. I don't know. On the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's festival of tabernacles begins, and it lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do no regular work. For 7 days present food offerings to the Lord, and on the 8th day hold a sacred assembly and present a food offering to the Lord. It is the closing special assembly. Do no regular work. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you are to proclaim as the sacred assemblies for bringing food offerings to the Lord, the burnt offerings, the grain offerings, sacrifices, and drink offerings required for each day. These offerings are in addition to those for the Lord's Sabbaths, and in addition to your gifts and whatever you have vowed and all the free will offerings you give. So, beginning with the 15th day of the 7th month, after you've gathered the crops of the land, celebrate the festival to the Lord for 7 days. The first day is a day of Sabbath rest, and the 8th day is also a day of Sabbath rest. On the first day, you are to take branches from the luxuriant trees, from palms, willows, other leafy trees, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Celebrate this as a festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. There sure is a lot of emphasis on it's a week long. It's 7 days. Don't cut it short. Yep, celebrate. Take the full amount of time to celebrate. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Celebrate it in the 7th month. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. All native-born Israelites are to live in such shelters. So your descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when I brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses announced to the Israelites the appointed festivals of the Lord. So the last one is they're camping for a week. Right? September, it's beautiful weather. Fall, everybody likes camping in fall. Ron and Paula went camping in fall. So they have this week-long camping. Well, it's not really camping, but it's to remember that God brought them out of Egypt. And while they were out of Egypt, they were in temporary shelters. And they're now in permanent shelters because they now have land. Or they will when they get there. So those are the festivals. Do you notice anything about these festivals? Was there, yeah.
There's a lot of do no work, so maybe they're being taught to rely on the Lord, that He's actually their provision of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It brings up questions what was considered work. We had the experience of being in Israel hotel one time. And Shimon, Ryan and I, all hotel elevators run 1 floor at a time. Because it's work, it's money.
Right, right.
But also you work, you tire your shoes, I'm not sure what else working, what is it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that would be man-made idea of pushing an elevator button would be work, because that loses the idea of what's the Sabbath. It wasn't about what you can't do. It was about what? It was celebrating God. It was about celebrating God. It was about following God and taking time to rest. The whole Sabbath system was to say, God, I trust that you can take care of me. I don't need to work 7 days a week to exist in life. I trust that you can take care of me. They had, every 7 years, they were not, the 7th year, they were supposed to leave their ground fallow and not plant. Well, that's a whole year. That's a whole year's crop. And God says, I can feed you. I'm sovereign. I can take care of you. I'll make sure in the 6th year your crops will be so good they'll cover the 7th year and the 8th year until your crops are harvested. There's the year of Jubilee, the 49th year, or the 50th year rather, which happened after the 49th year. So you had the Sabbath year and then the year of Jubilee. Both years you're supposed to not do anything with the crops. Yeah, Michael Moore's like, how would that work? Yeah. But God said, do you trust me? Can I take care of you or not? And so the Sabbath isn't necessarily about, can I play soccer? Can I play ball? Because it sure is, I'm sweating. Is that work? No, right? Can I swing a hammer? Can I cook a meal? Can I go out and pay, somebody to, because I'm causing them to work? Am I breaking the Sabbath? It wasn't about that. It's about, God, I trust you. But all these festivals are something more. Not just about God, I trust you. God, you can take care of us. God, we remember what you've done for us. But there's something else in these festivals. What do you think? I'm going to give you time to ponder a little. So God works into Israelite culture festivals. I want you to relax. I want you to not work. I want you to trust me. I can take care of you. Don't worry about it. But what else in these festivals? Why are they doing these? There's a common thing that happens with all of these festivals.
There's offerings to the Lord. There's offerings.
Mm-hmm.
They're celebrating together.
They're celebrating together. There's offerings to the Lord. Yeah.
Sacred assembly.
Yeah. Sacred assembly. So what happens in a sacred assembly? What does that look like? Church. Okay. What's that? Like home teams. That's true. Yeah. And what do we do? Oh, Tom.
To me, it's like we're kind of getting the whole community, including God, is in that community, and we're all one. As far as being together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sharing all that we have.
Yep.
Us with Him and Him with us.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that whole celebration together, wherever you are, whoever you are. If you are not showing up on the Day of Atonement, then you're not part of the team, and you get kicked off the team in kind of a big way. Right? And how are they made part of that team? Okay, but how are the Israelites made part of, well, that's a bad question. They're members of Israel. How are we made part of the church?
First letters. How many words?
Well, yeah, let me act it out. Okay, longer hair, beard, died on a cross. Yes, yes. I think we have a new element to Soul Church now. We got some charades happening. I like this. They are celebrating the fact that they are there and they are Israel and they have what they have because of God. It's not only saying, God, I trust you, but they're saying, God, you are God and you are amazing in our life and we want to celebrate you. That's the difference between our celebrations today and their celebrations. We celebrate Thanksgiving, right? And it's about family, and it's about the pilgrims being taken care of, all that kind of stuff.
Now it's about eating.
It's about eating. But yeah, and these celebrations, they had eating, and they had all of that, and they remember what God did for them but it's all about celebrating God. Show up before me. Sacrifice before me. Understand that you are who you are because I am who I am. It's not just a time to party. It's not just a time to get family together and have a great meal. It's about time to get family together and the whole nation together because they realize they're one body, because of one faith, because of one Lord, because of one God. I think these celebrations is God's way of saying, I am God, and you are who you are because I am who I am. So celebrate the I am. Celebrate me. I love that. I think that's the difference between modern day celebrations and the celebration that God asks us to do. Don't just celebrate because it's fun, because you can get together and you can get chocolates and, all that kind of stuff. It's about God. Celebrate the great I am. I've said this before. I think we need to do that in church more. We need to just get together, not because we want to invite the community, not because we want a Thanksgiving meal or a salmon barbecue or have any purpose to it other than let's get together, enjoy each other's company in the presence of God and say, God, we are who we are because you are who you are, because you are God. And simply celebrate him. We need to celebrate more. I'm lousy at it. I really am. So that's why we have people like Brenda and like Lori and those who, and Michael Moore is awesome. I mean, she comes in the office and makes me celebrate, which is cool.
She makes us all celebrate.
Yes, she does. But we're God's people. We're his people. We are who we are because he is the great I am. And I think these festivals are just points on a calendar to say, I am who I am. I am. Don't forget me. Celebrate me. Celebrate me. Honor me. Put me first in your life. Trust me. You are who you are because I am who I am. So I don't know how we do that. I think we've begun to do that a little bit on our calendar for worship because we're just going to have days once every so often. We're just going to praise and worship. No sermon. Well, maybe a little bit of sermon. But we're just going to celebrate. And we're going to say, God, you are God. And we're glad you're our God. And we would gladly give all that we have in celebration to you. That's chapter 23 of Leviticus. Let me just close in prayer. God, thank you that you are God. Thank you. We celebrate that you're God. We have what we have because you are who you are. We are who we are because you are the great I am. And we thank you for that. Jesus, help us to be people who celebrate you more. Help us to understand celebration comes from you because you're God and you're worth celebrating. So God, thank you that we could do that tonight. I pray that you keep us safe as we go from here and that, God, you continue to draw us closer to you to be more like you. I ask and I pray it in your name, Jesus. Amen.